everybody, how's it going? This is Max with BuzzTox here, and about a week ago, these Game of Thrones Season 7 plot leaks came out. Now, I personally didn't really want to address them, that's why a week's flown by. I was actually going to work on a news video, but then I realized when I put this out, everyone would be asking me about these plot leaks and the connection between, the leaked scenes with these plot leaks, so I thought I'd put my thoughts on these plot leaks in this video. And my overall thoughts can be summed up as, they are fake, but I think there is an underlying truth to some of them, in the sense that the guy who leaked them probably got bare bones of the leak and then built his shitty predictions on top of that. So just to give a little bit of perspective, I dived into the Game of Thrones Season 6 leaks, which were actually very popular when they came out. And I just want to give you guys perspective on what they said, because the Season 6 plot leaks were absolutely ridiculous, and I think we need to look at these plot leaks in the same lens. So let's start off with Daenerys. Her story was very different from the actual Game of Thrones Season 6 storyline. It just kind of shows that these plot leaks were very fan servicey. After she got rescued, she felt iffy about Jorah, but then kept him on and said if Jorah messed up again, she'd banish him. And Jorah was actually hiding his grayscale from Daenerys, and Daario threatened to tell Daenerys about his grayscale, so he forced Jorah to leave, which doesn't match up with Jorah's character. And I think if you're looking or trying to predict something, you need to look at the character. Jorah would never put Daenerys in harm's way with his grayscale. He would actually tell her that, and that's how the show handled it, and that was the right way to do it. Hiding it from Daenerys is not something Jorah would do, I believe, in that sense. But then on top of that, Daario convinces Daenerys to lock up Drogon. Daario unleashes the second sons on everyone, and he pronounces himself King of Meereen, because he's actually the leader of the Harpies. And Grey Worm dies, all this shit goes down. Daenerys and Missandei are held prisoner by the bastard. So then Tyrion actually tells Jorah to release the dragons, so they eventually do, and then Jorah kills Daario. That is literally nothing like the storyline that we got. The only similarity is that Daenerys escaped Meereen. So that one was a mess. Let's go over to the north. So Sansa and Theon were actually found in episode 3 by Brienne, which doesn't really make any sense because they're in an urgent situation. We left off with Sansa and Theon jumping off the wall in season 5, and they're in a very urgent situation. That's something you have to address in episode 1. But they pushed it to episode 3, which I don't even understand. And Podrick dies. And then they actually go to this place called the Last Hearth, and they see Rickon and Osha. Wow. Crazy. In the actual season, they were held captive and killed. And then on top of that, Melisandre burns Ollie to resurrect Jon, which makes absolutely no sense because Ollie is a farmer's son. And then Yara randomly picks up Theon because Theon is with Sansa. And then in the Battle of the Bastards, which they did predict right, but I think everyone else knew that also, Tormund and 1-1 die. Jon gets a duel with Ramsay and the Vale swoops in. They got that right, but I feel like everyone was saying that as well. Sansa has Roose Bolton executed because he didn't actually die in these plot leaks. And Brienne is the one to kill him. And the overall North storyline ends by nobody knowing what the fuck to do. Jon's not king of the North. Nobody's king in the North, or queen in the North for that matter, and they're just sitting there not knowing what to do. Sounds like a great ending to me. In King's Landing in the finale, Cersei has the Mountain kill everyone who opposes her, and then Tommen ends up dying. And then Loras stabs Cersei. Alright, so everyone in King's Landing died. Phenomenal. And then let's go over to Bran. You can tell that these storylines are just so fabricated because they said Bran will obviously get flashbacks. Of course. And they pulled the flashback. Ned and Robert play fighting as kids just to show that kind of camaraderie between the two of them. And this was totally made up. And they also mentioned, Harrenhal and stuff like that. And it's easy to make predictions like that because it's in the book material. But then to explain Hodor, they said so definitively that Robert whacks Hodor in the head with the sword because he was mad. That's Hodor's great story. And what I love about that is that this story gets so much attention. Trev and I nailed this one. Well, mainly Trev did, but check this out. And even we've seen that Bran can manipulate time now. So what if he tries to manipulate time with Hodor?
Like something desperate happens and maybe he tries to warg within a memory. I feel like Hodor is a mispronunciation of something we already know. Like it's something oh, we're gonna be like, oh, that's what he was saying the whole time.
Like he was like scarred for life and he's trying to say something, but he can't say it properly.
What's the name of that episode?
The door. Door.
Right? Who knows? Something like that. Like the door. He was trying to say the door and something happened. I feel like that's gonna be what happens.
That would actually be sick. Door. So we were on track, but we missed the hold part of hold the door. But then continuing on, Dorne was just a mess. It was fucked. They predicted it totally wrong. And they predicted the end of the show that the wall would fall down. The Night's King would come forward on an undead horse with all these whites behind him. And the wall would come down and he'd look at Ed, injured on the ground, and he'd kill him. And the Night's King would resurrect Dolores Ed from the dead. And that's the ending, which is a totally different ending than what we got. I personally did think that the wall could have fallen at the end of season 6, just because I thought Bran passing through might have made it crumble, but he actually didn't pass through this season, so that's interesting. But I think here I've proved my point. You know, you can't really trust these leaks, and if you look at the history of season 6, there's no relation here. Like, it seems very fabricated to me. So let's take a look at the season 7 plot leaks for Game of Thrones. So I'm not going to waste my time going through every single episode and all the predictions, because that's wasting my time on these fake plot leaks, but I just want to go through the main points that raises questions and make absolutely no sense. And that starts with episode 6. So apparently Beric Dondarrion, Thoros Emir, Tormund, Jorah, Gendry, they all end up going to the wall because Jon has a brilliant idea. He wants to capture a white to convince everybody that they actually exist. So Jon, take your pick. Which one do you want? You got a lot to choose from. You need to make the right choice. So dumb. So I think this goes on to say this is probably the stupidest idea ever. And the whole thing about this leak is that it relies on Jon leaving with his squad, and it is assumed that they're going on a mission. So apparently this plot leak actually came out before the set photos were released. This is why I think some of these fake plot leaks have validity to them, but they're just covered in shit. So for example, they probably got information that Jon is going to go on a mission to the north. And then they go, oh, okay, so let's add layers to that. Oh, why is he going to the north? He's going to capture a white. And they add all these little details to make this fabricated story to make it more appealing. And unfortunately, when they come to these conclusions, they don't make any sense. And some characters make certain moves that don't line up with their character arcs and who they are. So what I personally think would make most sense if Jon and Daenerys did have to go north, which I'm starting to think that they do from a storytelling perspective. The two most popular characters I feel like have to be involved in the big climax event of Game of Thrones Season 7. But if I were to predict it, I would say that Bran would have foresight that the White Walkers are coming south. He would either, see it from the future, or he'd see them through another weirwood tree across the wall, and he would write a letter to Jon from Winterfell saying, hey, can you please get here? They're approaching the wall, and we don't have enough men to take them on. And, everyone at Castle Black is gonna die. Please get there and see what you can do. And I think that will result in Jon maybe taking a team. I can't explain why there's the small team, but all I know is that capturing a white makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So the rest of the plot leak goes on to say that Jon goes to Eastwatch by the sea, and while he's there, he's actually attacked by the Night's King, and we see a zombie polar bear, and it kills Thoros Emir. But then Dany just arrives with the dragons. Dany knows that they're in trouble, and she flew from Dragonstone all the way to the wall to make sure that they're protected. And, she leaves Jon behind. Shit. Sorry, Jon. And then Jon is kind of stuck there, and then apparently Benjen swoops in, sacrifices himself, and lets Jon flee on his undead horse. And while this is happening, the craziest thing happened. The Night's King ends up killing Viserion and resurrects it as a mount. I personally made a video about White Walkers, and I did say the Night's King will resurrect a dragon, and I said Drogon and use him as a mount. However, this is not the time to do it, and if you want to see that video, click the annotation on the screen or check the link below. But this is how I feel. It is way too early to resurrect a dragon. The story becomes too big too soon. If he comes back, you have 6 episodes of the Night's King on a dragon. That's pretty much uncontrollable. That should happen in the last 2 episodes or 3 episodes. Not leaving 6 episodes of the Night's King on a dragon. There's too many stakes. You can't have 6 episodes from a production standpoint of just war. So what I personally predicted is that in the last season, Daenerys would actually die. And I have a lot of things to base that on, like how she saw her family at the wall. Maybe I'm reaching, I don't know. But I think she will die and Drogon will be brought back as the Night King's mount. And I think that plays into Bran's future on how he will not walk again, but he will fly. because he's the one who has to take the mantle of controlling the dragons because their mother Daenerys has died. And these dragons refuse to fight their alpha brother Drogon. So Bran has to warg into these dragons to fight the Night King on Drogon. So after all that shit that went down, they actually caught a white. It's amazing. I don't know how they did it. But at some point during this, they say that Jon promises to lay down his title as King of the North if Daenerys helps him fight the White Walkers, which to me makes absolutely no sense. Why would Daenerys not want him to be King of the North? He seems to support Daenerys' cause, and all of his bannermen support Jon. So what's the problem? He's a good guy. He's a good king. The problem with this is it has an assumption that Daenerys doesn't want Jon to be King of the North. How does that make any sense? Maybe because he's a bastard? I don't think that really matters, because she's building a new world, and in this world, Yara can be king of the Iron Islands. So I doubt this is true whatsoever. And then after all this that went down, Sansa sentences Littlefinger to death, Arya ends up killing him, Cersei ends up having a miscarriage with Jaime's child, which is crazy, and then Sam and Bran figure out Jon Snow's parentage, that it's actually Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark. And his real name is Aegon, and he was legitimized at birth, not a bastard. First of all, I want to say I find it very weird how Rhaegar would name his son Jon after his other son, Aegon. You know, usually you don't name your kids the same name, so I don't think that really holds up. On top of that, to me, in my personal opinion, everyone is so fascinated with Jon has to be legitimized as a Targaryen. He has to be legitimized. No. Jon being legitimized doesn't matter. It doesn't change his blood. He's ice and fire. Jon, to me, is always a Stark. He's the most like a Stark. He feels like he's a Stark, but he has the blood of a Targaryen, and that's what makes him unique, and that's what makes him special. He doesn't want to be a Targaryen. He wants to be a Stark. And I don't think him being legitimized changes anything in the story. Jon is still going to be the hero. Jon is still going to be the leader. So why does he have to be legitimized? But what Jon did make sure to do was to have sex with Daenerys on the way up north. That's what they say. Jon and Daenerys have sex on a boat while going up north, which is really confusing because it kind of contradicts something else they say later, which they think that they're going to have a dragon pit scene where Jon is going to be there and everyone's going to be there. And that is after they catch the White. So why are they going north if they have to go to King's Landing and meet Cersei? That's what they're saying. Daenerys is going to go parlay with Cersei, and Jon brings the White. So what Cersei does, she orders the mountain to try and kill it. The mountain can't kill it. And then Jon says, only dragonglass can kill them. We know that dragonglass isn't the only thing that can kill whites. And then after all that, Cersei's like, I will help you guys. I will totally help you guys. And then she leaves, and then she says, Jaime, I'm actually not going to help them. I was lying. Bring on the Horde, and fuck everybody, and I'm staying here. And then Jaime gets angry, and he goes north. A lot of problems with this. These negotiations are based on the White Walkers and not Cersei's surrender. So their prediction looks like Daenerys leaves Cersei as queen in the north and negotiates with her to take on the White Walkers, which makes no sense. This whole story arc is going to be Cersei's downfall. You don't build up that whole thing and have somebody take on the throne, which they shouldn't have. And Cersei's recklessness. She would never parlay with Daenerys. Cersei isn't someone you save, it's someone you stop. And I think that's going to be explored in this season. And then based on their predictions, where do you go from there? Cersei's just chilling out in King's Landing? It makes no sense. Cersei definitely has to be stopped. And what I think is the typical theory in this sense, I feel like everybody else. She's going to want to blow up the Red Keep and King's Landing, and Jaime will have to kill her to save everybody. But it'll end up blowing up anyway. It's tragic. It's very tragic. And speaking of tragedy, the wall falls at the end, just like in the Season 6 predictions. But this time, the dragon, Viserion, destroys it with the Night's King on his back. So here's the thing. I agree that the wall will come down. And I agree Castle Black will most definitely end up being destroyed. But this dragon thing is way too urgent. You can't have the Night's King riding a dragon for 6 episodes, because that's just all-out chaos and war. And he'll destroy everything. So this dragon, I think he's going to be brought in episode 3 or 4 of season 8. And that will create a holy shit moment that lasts an episode or 2 episodes or maybe just in the finale. And it will impress the hell out of us. But you can't have something that big last 6 episodes. There's no way. But anyway, those are my thoughts on the Game of Thrones plot leaks. Now, I'm going to be releasing more Game of Thrones news videos. I've been working on my theory videos. I haven't had a good theory video in a while, and I really want to get those done. It's just I'm so busy. And, I was really excited to get a lot of work done, and then my dog gets fleas. So my whole house has fleas. So I need to clean my whole house now, so I don't know if I'm going to get a prediction video out this week or next week. I'm not sure, but I will keep you up to date on the news while there is still some coming out. But until then, I'll see you guys later. Peace out.